In this video, I will give you all 6 players that you need to succeed for the Showdown Captain mode on DraftKings for Monday Night Football in under 5 minutes. My name is Quick Pick Nick, and having simulated over 100,000 different roster builds, here are your Rolex and lotteries for tonight, December 21st, 2020. If you like this kind of fast-paced calculated content, subscribe and stay tuned for more lineups throughout the season, including a return to the NBA with a season opener on FanDuel tomorrow, as well as more regularly scheduled NFL content starting with Week 16 Thursday Night Football. To start off this lineup with our first lock at MVP, my model selected T. Higgins. I want to point out first, though, that Higgins is not necessarily locked in at the MVP position, and that in fact there were a number of different combinations including different players at MVP. The main 3 players that appeared in the MVP position are featured in this video as locks, but the most common MVP was Higgins, which is why I'll be covering this lineup with him getting the point multiplication. Just know that there were other combinations with other MVPs that would also be highly competitive tonight. The reason that we took Higgins in the first place is because he is primed to be the biggest scorer on the Bengals side of the ball, as he is clearly Cincinnati's most consistent option for his given matchup. Throughout the season, Higgins has only fallen below 10 fantasy points 4 times, 2 of which happened in the first 2 weeks, another came a few weeks back against Washington's tough secondary, and the 4th happened just last week when Higgins scored 9.9 fantasy points, but below 10 is below 10. I'm not one to twist stat lines in my favor. In any case, Higgins has only become a more prevalent part of this offense during 2020, and has shown that he can play against the best, as back in week 10 when the Bengals played the Steelers for the first time this season, Higgins completely popped off with 26.5 fantasy points, including 115 yards and a touchdown. With the Steelers on a downward trend, having lost their first 2 games in a row and going into a divisional matchup, Higgins will hopefully be able to take advantage of Pittsburgh's exhausted defense. Plus, for just $6,800 on DraftKings, Higgins is the 3rd cheapest Bengal and the 9th cheapest overall, so we'll be able to save a ton of money without worrying about the price multiplication factor in play. The second lock my model found was the second most common option at the MVP position among top simulated lineups, as my model selected Ben Roethlisberger. Roethlisberger doesn't post the most impressive numbers, barely managing 15 last week and not even averaging 20 on the season, and he is the most expensive option by a large margin, running you $11,800 on DraftKings, but he is still the most reliable option in this slate, who can almost guarantee a certain threshold of points. Roethlisberger has only fallen below 15 fantasy points once this season, and that was when the Browns were first starting to get hot. But apart from that one dip, we've seen solid points throughout 2020 from Big Ben. The other side of that coin is that he hasn't had a big game in a while, only surpassing 20 points once over the past 4 weeks. But fortunately for us here, Roethlisberger's biggest game of the season came in that Week 10 matchup against Cincy, when Ben racked up 4 touchdowns and over 32 fantasy points, hopefully something to be repeated tonight. The third and final lock of this lineup is going to be an odd one for my lineups, as this kind of player isn't usually so reliable to be a lock, but this time around my model picked a kicker, Chris Boswell. The Steelers as a whole haven't played all too well recently, which has obviously affected Boswell's output since the Steelers need to score points for Boswell to score points, but before Pittsburgh's recent missteps, Boswell was scoring pretty consistently, averaging just about 8 fantasy points per game throughout the season. Boswell's biggest game came against the Bengals, as he managed 14 fantasy points, and Pittsburgh will likely attempt some more field goals tonight given their lack of a proficient run game. For the lotteries, the one option that was slightly more definite than other lotteries is the Steelers defense, who cost $7,200 on DraftKings, which is more expensive than I've ever seen a defense cost, but the Steelers will likely outscore their price point regardless. Averaging above 10 fantasy points per game on the season, this defense has been stout throughout 2020, aside from the past couple of weeks, and the last time they faced a Joe Burrow-led Cincinnati team, the defense managed 12 points. Against a Ryan Finley-led team, I expect an encore with even greater numbers tonight. For the last 2 lotteries, my model had 2 separate combinations that I really couldn't pick between, as they both include one pretty good player and one rather inconsistent option, so feel free to make these 2 choices on your own as to which couple of guys you trust more. The first of these options is Deontay Johnson, the second most expensive option on DraftKings, but also one with huge volume, recording 11.5 targets per game over the past 6 weeks, which is very promising for PPR scoring. Johnson can then be paired with either James Conner or Eric Ebron, the former of which is dealing with an injury and has fallen off quite sharply over the past few weeks, and the latter, although he does typically find solid volume, might face a decrease in usage due to his butterfingers and inability to actually catch the ball. The other combination included Juju Smith-Schuster, who may find a larger role tonight given the other Steelers receivers' issues with ball security and catching an open ball, again paired with either Conner or Ebron. The choices between Johnson and Smith-Schuster, as well as Conner and Ebron, are more related to organizational issues that can't be discerned from the numbers, so I'll leave you to your own understandings of the Steelers game script, because all I can do here is present the numbers and the best possible outcome given our limited budget. That's what my model was able to come up with for the Monday Night Football Showdown Captain mode on DraftKings tonight, December 21st, 2020. This has been Quick Pick Nick, the intersection for sports, data analysis, and speed. Thanks for watching.